What's holding you back? Even those who fully embrace the theory of positive thinking may feel some qualms over entrusting their lives to mere thought. There are many possibilities that could be producing weeds in your mental garden, and the best way to get rid of a weed is to yank it out, roots and all. In this section, we'll discuss some of the most common stumbling blocks people encounter on the road to positive thinking, as well as how to overcome them and lay the foundation for a healthy life outlook. For most of human existence, self-esteem was an unheard of notion akin to the theories of those heretics who believed the world was round. The term self-esteem, defined by Webster's dictionary as pride in oneself, self-respect, made its way into the common public awareness during the 60s and 70s as a catch-all term to describe the essence of parenting problems. The old ways of parenting were pronounced barbaric and damaging to the budding self-esteem of our youth, and many parents, fearful of raising unhappy, ill-adjusted children, took advice that led to a generation of children with high self-esteem so high it eclipsed personal responsibility and created a me-first mentality. On the other hand, most of us are taught that thinking highly of ourselves is a vain, selfish and undesirable trait. Advice telling us to feel better about ourselves and occasionally put us first seems counterintuitive at best. After all, isn't self-love the first step on the road to ego central? Many people want to feel good about themselves, but guilt too often rears its ugly head and stops healthy self-esteem from developing. Because of these conflicting viewpoints, self-esteem is a tricky little emotion to manipulate. It's important to strike a balance between modesty and greed. It takes practice to convince yourself that you are a worthwhile and deserving person, while at the same time keeping in mind that you're not the center of the universe. Though it may sound impossible, it's actually simple to accomplish. The things we learn in childhood aren't easy to forget, mostly because we don't actively remember them. It is far harder to dislodge subconscious thoughts when we are unaware not only of why we embrace or avoid certain things, but also unaware of the fact that we are embracing or avoiding them. Pinpointing the roots of our actions is a difficult process. Childhood lessons don't always come from our parents, and often not even the messages we received from them were intentionally placed there. For example, if your parents raised you to be helpful, courteous, polite, and giving, you may have learned those lessons so well that the very idea of doing something for yourself makes you cringe, and you may not know why. On the other hand, if your parents gave you everything you wanted without you ever asking for it or lifting a finger, you may project those same expectations on everyone around you again, with no idea why you're doing it, or even that you are doing it at all. Many times, outwardly selfish people are shocked to discover that others perceive them as selfish. They may even believe themselves the kindest, most benevolent people they know. Another factor you may not consider when trying to access your childhood programming is the outside influences that affected your formation. Teachers, daycare workers or babysitters, school friends, even random adults in the grocery store may have had an impact on your behaviors and beliefs, whether consciously or unconsciously. Beyond childhood, you may have experienced setbacks or letdowns for which you clearly recall the reasoning. Often, we are so opposed to change that the slightest sign a new way of doing things isn't working out becomes the signal to stop trying. We are creatures of habit, and breaking the mold we've created for ourselves is a challenge few feel they have the time or the energy to face. Fortunately, we can chip away at that mold until the cracks become wide enough to break free. According to most psychologists, it takes 21 days to break a habit. The actions and reactions you develop in response to letdowns are nothing more than habits that you can rid yourself of with practice. Ready for another exercise? Make a list of all the things you've tried and stopped doing before completing. Remember, you haven't failed at them, you have simply made a temporary pit stop on the path to success. This list might include diets, resolutions, exercise habits, quitting smoking, or even self-help programs like this one. Leave yourself some space after each item. When you get to the end of the list, go back and fill in those habits you have developed as a consequence of waiting to follow through. For example, if you listed the Atkins diet, your habit might be overindulging on pasta because I didn't eat any for 6 months. Some of your habits may be simple to change, others may require deviation from your intended course. In the pasta example, you might realize you can still eat pasta, just not as often as you have been while making up for the loss. Come up with an alternative for each habit that you can live with, so you don't short yourself before you get started. You might decide to have pasta twice a week instead of every other night. Now that you have a guide, you can start implementing successful changes one step at a time. Choose 1 or 2 habits you'd like to change, and be sure to implement the changes daily for 21 days in a row. It's helpful to keep a journal or a chart to remind yourself what you're working on and why. You can also treat yourself to a reward after the successful completion of each habit-breaking cycle. How about a nice big plate of spaghetti? Go ahead, you've earned it. Bad things happen to good people. It's a fact of life. One of the most extraordinary things about human beings is our capacity for resilience in the face of trauma. Miraculous survival and recovery are not occasional happenings in the world. Every day, someone survives a tragedy. Every day, someone takes another step toward a happier life despite a past trauma. Every day, life goes on, and we adjust. And we are stronger for it. The suggestions in this section, once again, are not substitutes for professional psychiatric care. However, many people have found self-help effective for relieving the stress of trauma and taking control of themselves. Whether you choose to seek professional help or embark on a healing path yourself, know that you can break free and begin to live again when tragedy touches you. You don't have to let trauma keep you from achieving what you want out of life. You can choose just one, or any combination of these techniques to work on freeing yourself from trauma. For mild trauma, sometimes laughter really is the best medicine. If you are able to look at the situation objectively, you may be able to laugh it off or at least arm yourself with enough knowledge to realize you had it easy. There are two ways to approach this method. The first is to simply use your imagination. Picture the trauma, and then imagine all the ways in which it could have been worse. For example, if you have a checking account, you may have bounced a check, ended up having to pay a fee to the bank, and had to postpone paying one of your bills or go without something you planned to purchase. Now, imagine what might have happened if you bounced multiple checks. You might have had to put off several payments. The snowball effect could have caused you to lose your car or have your power shut off. Your bills could have spiraled out of control, eventually leaving you homeless. When you imagine the worst, it's easier to put setbacks into perspective. Traumas can be seeds for more pain or for growth. Bouncing multiple checks and losing your power, your car, or your house qualifies as major trauma, for which dramatization is not always effective. The second approach to dramatization and awareness of minor trauma is to research actual cases where the situations of other people turned out worse than yours. You can search online for news stories or browse the periodicals archive at your local library. Generally, you will always be able to find cases concerning people who had more difficulty than you, yet they survived, and you will too. After all, you're still alive. If you want to take this method a step further, you can do something to help others in your situation. Make a donation to a specific case or a related charity, or start a support program or fund drive in your community. Taking action, no matter how small, often helps to alleviate the feelings of loss and helplessness associated with trauma. Keeping a journal or diary is one of humankind's oldest traditions. The thoughts, feelings, and emotions of generations have been preserved through countless pages inscribed with words that are often kept private throughout the life of the writer and revealed only in the interests of adding to historical record. For therapeutic purposes, sometimes the act itself of writing down past trauma allows you to face it more fully and release the negative feelings associated with the event. The journaling process can be a short-term program used solely for working on a specific trauma. If you keep a short-term journal, you may wish to burn or destroy it at the end of the process as a symbolic realization of your freedom from trauma. If you enjoy journaling, you may wish to continue keeping a written record of your thoughts and feelings. Many people keep daily or weekly journals their entire lives. Journaling is an excellent form of self-communication that can benefit you whether or not you've experienced trauma in your life. You may be surprised to learn that whatever type of trauma has affected your life, there is probably a support group of people who have been through the same thing and are willing to talk about it with you. Many kinds of trauma are difficult to discuss with anyone who hasn't had the same experience. Support groups are created with that truth in mind. If your trauma is a common one, such as alcohol abuse, there may be a live support group that meets regularly in your area you can attend. Most churches, community organizations, and local newspapers provide lists of area support groups with meeting times, locations, and contact information for the coordinators of the group. If there are no live support groups in your area, you might consider forming one. You can find guidelines for forming support groups at your local library or online. Even if the support you're looking for is not so common, the internet has allowed people all over the world to connect and unite who might otherwise never have known anyone else like them existed. There are communities, forums, and private chat groups online to cover just about every walk of life, from displaced homemakers to victims of sexual abuse to reformed ex-convicts. With careful research, you can find a supportive and friendly internet community to share your trauma with and connect on a level that would otherwise prove difficult, or even impossible, for someone who hasn't experienced a similar event. One of the most elemental solutions for finding enthusiasm is to focus on the benefit you will derive from completing a particular task. In some situations, it's easy to discover the benefit. For instance, you may hate wrapping presents, but you know the person you're giving the present to will be overjoyed when presented with this lovely paper-wrapped gift, and so you derive happiness from envisioning the recipient opening the present. This is an especially useful tactic when you're still up at 2 a.m. on Christmas morning, trying to figure out how to wrap the bicycle you've just spent 3 hours putting together. Other circumstances will not have such obvious benefits. If you were to find yourself trying to change a flat tire on the side of the road in the middle of a snowstorm or a rainstorm, if you are fortunate enough to live in a snow-free climate, it would undoubtedly be difficult to find your silver lining. Under stressful circumstances, give yourself permission to think of the wildest benefit you can come up with. Perhaps you were on your way to a party you would rather not have gone to. In that case, your flat tire would give you the perfect excuse to turn around and go back home. There is some good in every situation, whether it's in the form of a benefit or a lesson to be learned. Lesson 1. Never drive with questionable tires through a snowstorm to a party you didn't want to attend in the first place. You can harness the power of positive thinking by finding that good and exploiting it, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. If you're having trouble summoning enthusiasm for a particular task, try to seek out someone who enjoys doing that sort of thing and ask them to partner up with you. Like smiling, enthusiasm is contagious. If you spend some time observing another person's enthusiasm, some of it is bound to rub off on you. If you don't know anyone who might be enthusiastic about what you're trying to accomplish, try going online to look up articles or blogs, weblogs, which are usually personal, regularly updated online journals pertaining to the subject. Sometimes merely reading about someone else's enthusiasm can help you find some aspect of the task to enjoy and get you through it with a minimal amount of stress, anxiety, and dread. Be warned. It may be difficult to discover anyone who enjoys scrubbing toilets or emptying cat litter boxes. In these cases, you might be on your own. Muddling through a particular task or project can be daunting if you don't know what you're doing. If you're the type of person who never asks for directions or reads the instructions, you may be tempted to take on challenges in areas where your knowledge is limited. Even if you're not, you may find yourself faced with taking on a task you don't feel qualified to handle, whether it's filling in for someone in a different department at work or changing an infant's diaper for the first time. The more you know about what you're doing, the easier it will be to accomplish. This may seem self-explanatory, but many people don't realize that you can always find out more information. It only takes a few minutes to look up something on the internet, consult a reference book, or call up someone you know has experience with the issue you're facing. Gaining knowledge has other benefits as well. The more you know about a given subject, the better you will be able to focus on your goal and work toward it. You cannot reach your destination if you cannot find the path. Look upon knowledge as the pruning shears of your mental garden, clearing the way for enthusiasm to grow and spread. With the right set of tools, you can accomplish any task easily. Being committed to achieving your aim is essential to generating a sense of enthusiasm. Whether you want to have gleaming white teeth or flash your pearly whites at crowds of thousands as you accept your Academy Award, you should be completely committed to what you're trying to accomplish. One way to cement your personal commitment is to outline a step-by-step plan for reaching your goals. You can do this with any task, no matter how great or small, though you might save time to generate a mental plan for things like washing the dinner dishes, as it might take you more time to write it all down than it would to actually wash them. On a sheet of paper or for monumental tasks such as changing careers, at the beginning of a notebook note your starting point, where you are now. Leave yourself some space, and then jot down where you want to be and how long you plan on taking to get there. Then go back and break down the process of getting from point A to point B in detailed steps. This not only helps you to visualize reaching your goal, it also allows you to cross steps off as you complete them. Your enthusiasm will be sustained as you move further toward your goal. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found the information useful. If you like the content and would like to keep learning and developing yourself, please consider to subscribe and share this video with the people around you. Thank you so much for watching.